Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Strix, and I'm coming at you with a pretty decent video today. We're going to be going over all 35 of the familiars in Lords Mobile and ranking them in order. So first thing I got to get out of the way here is personally, I don't have Pact 4 unlocked in my research. If I go over here to my research here for you for familiars, this is what it's looking like. I've got to Pact 3, but I haven't got to Pact 4. Just because I don't really think it's worth it to get to Pact 4 until you got all your Pact 3 familiars done, which I don't have all my Pact 3 familiars done. I'm in the process of doing it. But anyway, so going over 3 rules that I'm gonna use during this ranking. The first rule is that all the familiars are going to be graded on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the familiar is just perfect, there's no way that you could really improve upon it, and at a 1, that's going to be a familiar that is completely unusable. It basically has no abilities, or it has an ability that does absolutely nothing. And spoiler alert, but there's no familiar that's so bad that it does literally nothing. So there's going to be no familiar that's going to be graded at a 1. Number 2, different packs and different rarities for familiars. So like for example, Tearright, he's a rare in his pact, so they're going to be graded differently based upon that. So what that means is, like, if I think a familiar is just as good as a familiar that's in Pact 4, so if I think that there's a Pact 1 familiar that's just as good as a familiar in Pact 4, then I'm going to give the edge to the familiar that's in Pact 1 just because it's easier to get that familiar and it's going to cost a lot less resources and time in order to get it. Alright, and now number 3 is that I'm not going to be going over the new familiar Frostwing just because I don't like it. I don't like what it means to the game, and I prefer to just pretend like it doesn't exist. Plus, it seems like oddly bugged. It's either bugged or it's a typo because it says that it increases your opponent's travel speed, which seems like the opposite of what you would want to be doing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started off at number 35. Kicking things off for us at number 35, we have Jezik. Anyway, we have Jezik here. He gets a rating of 1.5. He's pretty close to just unusable trash. His only ability is plus 10% vault storage, which doesn't really do much at all. Plus 10% vault storage at like a pretty close to max vault here. If I go over here for you, that just equates to like an additional 430,000 protected resources, which doesn't mean anything. Like, if you're getting your resources taken, then you probably should try to do something. Try to send your resources to somebody else so that they can't get taken, or try to use them up so that way they can't get taken. So overall, Jezik, just not a really good familiar at all, so that's why he gets to be put at the bottom of the list with a rating of 1.5. Alright, coming in at second worst now, we have Beastmaster with a rating of 2.0, 34th overall, and his only ability is going to be Trade Route, which gives your supply troops an additional 25% travel speed, which normally when you're supplying troops to someone, you'll port right next to them and then supply the troops, so the travel speed is not going to matter there because your troops are going to get back before you're able to send out a full 5 marches. But even if you're sending supply troops far away, then that usually means that you don't mind that it's taking time. So overall, this ability just doesn't really do much, so that's why he gets put in at number 34. Alright, coming in now at number 33, we have Spike, and the reason why I have him below the other production familiars is because he produces food, and food just isn't as valuable to me as stuff like stone, ore, and wood. It's just the worst out of all the resources. It's the most common, it's the most plentiful, so that's why Spike gets put all the way down at number 33. Moving on to the number 32 slot here, we have Yeti, and his only ability is going to be gathering troops travel speed. At max, he gives you plus 25% on it, and the only time I could ever really see this realistically mattering is when you're gathering gems after KVK, and even then, I don't usually like gathering gems during KVK because it's usually just a bunch of babies crying over like 200 gems, so it's not really my thing that I like to worry myself about doing, so that's why Yeti gets put all the way down at 32 for me. At 31, we have Magma Lord here, and all he does is give you an additional 25% stone production. He gets a rating of 2.5, and so yeah, not much to say about this guy. All he does is give you stone production. You know, it's better than food, but it's not as good as gold, as we'll be getting to in a second. At rank 30, we have Oak Root, same thing as the last familiar. All he does is give you plus 25% production, this time to timber, so he's also going to get a 2.5 rating. Not much to say about him, pretty boring familiar here. Alright, so coming in at 29, kicking off the 20s for us, it's going to be Engineer. the second to last of the basic production familiars. He produces ore, and in my opinion, ore would be the second most valuable resource out of all of them, so that's why I put engineer here ahead of the rest of them in at 29. And for the first time in this countdown, at number 28, we have the first familiar from Pack 2, and it's going to be Pack 2B familiar Crabby here, and he is just complete trash. He really is. So he gives you additional 35% ore production, so it's for that reason that he gets a 3.0 rating rather than 2.5 like I gave engineer. But this other ability down here, Rocky Resolve, the player XP boost, it's just so bad, you guys. Like, it's just not good whatsoever. You'll get to level 60, guys. It'll take you just a little bit of time, but boosting it by 10% isn't going to be really that big of a difference maker. So overall, Crabby's a really piss poor familiar in my opinion, so that's why I put him all the way down at number 28. With a 4.0 rating, coming in at the 27th slot, we have Gnome. And the only ability that Gnome's going to give you is plus 25% gold production, but gold is the most valuable resource in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree. So that's why I put him above all the other basic resource familiars, because gold is the most valuable resource. With a ranking of 26th and a rating of 5.0, we have Strix here, and her first ability, Blood Bag, I think it's a little bit overrated, and the reasoning for that is that most of the time you're going to have a ton of healing speed ups to be able to use. So like, for example, on my account, I think I have close to like a month's worth of healing speed ups that I just can't use because I don't get my troops wounded that often. So yeah, as you can see here, 443 60-minute speed ups, 53 hour speed ups, and 917 15-minute speed ups. So yeah, it doesn't really make that big of a difference as to how fast they heal. Let me get back to her proper here for you guys. I think she's in 2A. Yep. And her other ability, Quick Fix, I think it's the better of the abilities. It reduces execution wait time at max by 6 hours, which if you're a T4 player and you're just trying to get your altar boost up really high as fast as possible, it's pretty good for it. But overall, it's still a pretty weak hero, so that's why I gave her a 5.0 rating and put her all the way down at 26th. At 25th, I have a pretty controversial pick for the 25th best familiar in Lords Mobile. It's going to be Snowbeast with a 5.0 rating. The reason why I put a Pact 4 familiar this far down is because none of his abilities are really that good. You look at Pound the Ground, Darkness speed up plus 25%. If this was just generic Rally speed up plus 25%, then that would be somewhat useful, but speeding up Darkness coalitions, basically meaningless, so that ability does almost nothing. And then Frost Shield just gives you ranged defense, which normally you want to have your ranged behind your front line of either infantry or cavalry, so ranged defense will rarely ever actually matter, and even when it does matter, it's not as good as ranged HP, and it's not as good as ranged attack, so it's really, really bad. And then finally, you get increases supply capacity by 300% for 60 minutes. Like, I don't see how that's, you know, a game changer whatsoever. So overall, Snowbeast is such a weak Pack 4 hero that I gotta bring him all the way down to a 5.0 rating, which lands him at the 25th slot. With a 6.0 rating and coming in at 24th, we have Bonehead. His first ability gives you plus 20% max anima storage, which I never really find myself ever running low on anima, so I don't really see that. I don't really think this matters that much. But his other ability, Ready to Rumble, it's good and it's bad at the same time. It's good for when you migrate to a new kingdom and you want to climb Colosseum as fast as possible. He definitely accelerates that process without you having to use gems. But at the same time, once you're doing Colosseum, you get up to a certain point where you just can't get past anyone anymore. So at that point, you know, it doesn't really matter that he's going to give you more entries because you just can't go any higher. So for that reason, I have him in at 24th with a 6.0 rating. With a 6.5 rating and coming in at 23rd, we have Pyrus here. So his first ability, Friendly Fires, is really bad because it just gives you extra supplies plus 20%. If you're getting your troops hit, then odds are you're doing something wrong because your troops should never ever be getting hit realistically. And then his other ability here, Melting Pot, reduces transmutation time by 10%. It's okay. I'm really lazy about getting Darkness essences, so this doesn't help me that much. But if you're on top of it, then this could definitely help you out quite a bit, because on a 12-hour Darkness essence, that can speed it up by over an hour, so that's pretty good, I think. And then finally, you have the final ability, Blazing Trail, which, you know, it's cool, but realistically, most of the time, you're just killing like 10,000 T1 from somebody. You can use this ability though to complete Guildfest quests, so that's why I give it a little bit more of a bump, because it has that aspect to it, and plus it also just looks cool, so that's why he gets to come in with a ranking of 23. At 22, with a rating of 6.5, we have Evil Weevil. His first ability, Food Hoarder, it's not really that good. Food production plus 35%. Food, like I said before, is the most common resource, so that's not really that good. But Gather Round is actually a really good ability, especially if you're a hyper, because that can get you a lot of resources with just the press of a button, and it cooldowns really fast. The cooldown time on that is just a day at max, and it gets you 4 hours worth of a resource. So if you're producing, you know, 8 million of a resource every hour, that can get you quite a bit of resource, you know. With another 6.5 rating and coming in at 21, we have Sorcerer here. His first ability gives your allied troops travel speed plus 25%, and I'm pretty sure what this means is when you set a rally and people send their troops to you, it speeds up their troops coming to your rally, which does matter quite a bit. And, you know, plus 25%, that's basically the equivalent of saving a wing boots, probably a little bit less than that. But it's still, you know, not a do-nothing ability like some familiars have, so it does something. But then Dark Magic is actually a very good ability. So at max, you can instantly complete a transmutation, and the cooldown time on it is 1 day. So for the events where your transmutes make gems, this is really good. And it's also really good for if you're on top of having your essences and stuff. So overall, he's a pretty good familiar. That's why I have him at rank 21 with a 6.5 rating. With a solid 7 out of 10 and coming in 20th place here, we have Tempest Knight. So his first ability, Arrow Guard, gives you plus 20% wall defense. The only time I can see this mattering is if you're a wall trap, and I don't really like wall traps because it's very rare that a wall trap will actually eat someone's march. But it gives you plus 20% wall defense, which I still feel like isn't that much. I feel like there's some researchers that give you a crazy amount of wall defense, so that isn't even that much for those few people that are wall traps. His second ability though, Second Wind, plus 10% energy regain speed, is very, very good. That's a pretty gosh darn good ability for him. And then finally, his last ability, Fresh Air, at max, gives 20,000 random tier 1 troops every 3 days. So the cooldown timer on that is quite a long time. But 20,000 random tier 1 troops for traffic counts, that's actually a very, very good ability. So that's why I have him at 20th with a rating of 7 out of 10. At 19th, we have Tearright, and his first ability, Groundbreaker, here is very, very good. It increases the speed at which you merge packs by 20%, which is actually quite a bit, you know. And then his last ability here, Netherquake, grants a random amount of fragments 3 times, 5 to 30 each time, at a 1 day cooldown. So you're looking at between 15 and 90 fragments every day. That is a very, very good ability, which is why he is getting the 19th position with a 7 out of 10. With a 7.5 out of 10 in the Pact 4, coming in at 18th, we have Saber Fang. So his first ability here gives Monster Hunt travel speed plus 25% at max. You know, it's a difference maker, it's good. Travel speed for when you're hunting monsters is always a useful thing. And then his next ability gives Cavalry defense plus 10%. I don't understand this, why the Pact 4 familiars grant defense boosts, whereas the Pact 3 familiars, the ones that are easier to get, give you the better attack boost. I don't know why IGG did that, but hey, I mean, it's a good thing for us because it means that we can get those attack boosts easier. But still, plus 10% cavalry defense, it's not nothing, but it's still nowhere near as good as attack, and it's not even as good as HP. And then his final ability here, Hunting Ground. It's a really good ability for if you're trying to hunt, let's say, level 4 or 5, or even 3 monsters. But if you're hunting level 1 and 2 monsters, it's not going to really matter that much. But for when you're hunting those higher level monsters, this is definitely a very useful ability. So that's why he gets a rating of 7.5 out of 10 and comes in at 18th. Rank 17 and a rating of 7.5, we have a Pyrus here, and his first ability, Overflow, is pretty bad though. He gives you animal production of 40%, and like I said before, animal production, not really that big of a deal. I always find myself having plentiful amounts of animal lying around, but his second ability of Refreshed is very, very good. So at max, it gives you 60 to 120 stamina every 12 hours, so that's twice a day, as someone's sending me some troops, some supplies here. So if you take the average of that, 60 to 120, that's going to be an average of 90 stamina every 12 hours. So every day you get 180 additional stamina to get your heroes up to gold faster. That is a very, very good ability. Getting over a Braveheart a day for free, I think that gives acquirers quite a good ability to get him up to rank 17. At rank 16th with a rating of 7.5, we have Grim Reaper, the familiar that when the familiars first came out we were all absolutely terrified of, but she's really not that good, I've seen, because number one, not a lot of people have her, and number two, this Kiss of Death ability doesn't get used that often, but I'll get to that in a second. So her first ability here, Swift Soul, gives you plus 10% travel speed, which is actually, I think, maybe her best ability, sadly. Plus 10% travel speed, that's going to be good for hunting monsters, for getting rallies to players faster, for just attacking people faster in general, for, you know, sending troops to gather if that's your thing faster. So plus 10% travel speed, that's good for a variety of things. Soul Contract, the plus 10% ranged max HP. Like I said about ranged defense, your range is normally going to be behind whatever's taking the brunt of the damage. So ranged max HP and ranged defense aren't really good for keeping your ranged alive because they rarely ever get hit. And on top of that, ranged max HP, not as good as ranged attack, of course, because attack stats are better than HP stats. And then finally, the Kiss of Death ability, which at max kills 20,000 to 50,000 troops in an enemy's barracks. It will not exceed 5% of the total number of troops, and the higher tier troops will be targeted first. So normally when you're attacking the right castle, this is going to kill about 35,000 T4. The problem with this ability though is that it requires skill stones, and to forge one of these skill stones to kill 35,000 T4, I think costs like around over 100,000 gems, and that is just so not worth it. Just to troll somebody and kill 35,000 T4, you're going to spend 100,000 gems. That is just not worth it. So that's why Grim Reaper doesn't get put higher, and she has a ranking of 7.5. Coming in at 15th with a rating of 8.0 out of 10, we have this cute little guy here, Boulder. His first ability is not too impressive, it just gives you stone production plus 35%, but this next ability here over time is a game changer, because what this allows you to do is it allows you to no longer have to be in the kingdom in which your guild is in, because now you can just give yourself the helps that you'll need. And as you'll see later on in this video, there's another familiar that'll allow you to do the research, which just absolutely changes a fundamental dynamic of the game. At 14th with a rating of 8.0, we have a very solid familiar right here in Harpy. Her first ability, Cloud Cover, allows you to shelter an additional 50,000 troops, which, you know, I think getting that additional shelter capacity is pretty good in my opinion. I know I'm saying pretty good a lot, guys, but that's just one of my colloquialisms that I use a lot. I'll try to use it less. But then her next ability, First Class, gives you the 3 random VIP point items with a cooldown time of 1 day. In my experience, most of the time you're going to get just 100 VIP points, but you do very occasionally get like the 500s. I've even gotten 1,000 VIP points before. So this ability right here, very good for getting your VIP level up, and that's why I have Harpy coming in at number 14th. At rank 13th with a rating of 8.0, we have Mr. M&M Man himself, Mega Maggot here. His first ability, Motivation, I think is actually his best ability. It gives you plus 5,000 barracks capacity, which is almost the same as having a completely new level 25 barracks, which is really good for training up T1 troops when you want to use your higher amount speed ups. His next ability, Tough Carapace, 10% infantry defense. It's not nothing, but at the same time, it's not attack, so I can't really give him too much credit for that. And then his ultimate ability here of Contaminate reduces an enemy's resources production by 95% for 360 minutes. I mean, it requires a skill stone though, so it has to be pretty good, and I think just messing with your opponent's resource production for 6 hours, I don't think it's worth making the skill stone for, so for that reason, I can't put him any higher up on the list than 13. With a rating of 8.5 coming in at rank 12, we have Shaman. His first ability, Natural Remedy, is very good, giving you that infirmary capacity increase by plus 5%. Depending upon how much infirmary space you have, this is going to give you either not that much infirmary space or a lot of infirmary space. For me, this gives me quite a bit of infirmary space additional. It gives me around like 15,000 extra infirmary space, so that is very, very good for me. And then his second ability, Nutty Power, gives you 10% infantry attack, which is so good. Definitely his best ability. And then finally, this ability right here repairs 50% of wall HP with a cooldown timer of 1 day. I heard that for wall traps, this is actually a game changer for them, because this allows them to repair their walls without having to wait, you know, days and days and days. So that's good for them, but for the vast majority of players, this ability just does nothing. So I give them this rating of 8.5 out of 10, based mostly upon Natural Remedy and Nutty Power. Just missing out of top 10 with a rating of 8.5, coming in at 11th, we have Griffon. First ability here, Air Support, gives max allied troop size plus 50,000, and if you don't know what that means for your embassy. Rather than being able to hold 1 million troops at max, you can hold 1,050,000 troops at max. Which, you know, 50,000 troops, it's not a lot, but it is definitely a difference maker. Not a game changer, but it is a difference maker. I think it's a pretty good ability. I like that it exists. And then Griffon's next ability, Training Speed, plus 5% training speed. That's not a lot of training speed, to be completely honest. It's not like the equivalent of having a level 25 manor. But, you know, it's still nice to get some additional training speed to get your troops faster. And then finally, Homeward Bind. I struggle to ever find a situation in which Homeward Bind actually does something good for you. Like, I'm not sure how you can use this in a way that could, you know, trick your opponent or deceive them in any way. Let me know if you guys know of a way that you could use this tactically to beat an opponent. It also requires a skill stone too, which sucks really badly because that means that it's going to require gems in order to activate this ability. But these first two abilities are more than enough to carry it into the 11th spot. Finally, getting into the top 10 familiars in Lords Mobile, coming in at 10th, we have Tidal Titan with a rating of 8.5 out of 10. His first ability, Fountain of Youth, gives infantry max HP plus 10%. It's better than defense. It's not as good as attack, but it's definitely useful. So, you know, it's solid. It's not good, but it's solid. Now then, Water Wall grants army defense plus 10%. You know, defense isn't that good, but then again, this isn't like infantry defense. This is full-on army defense. So I'll have to say that this ability right here is also solid. Not good, but solid. But now then, this ability here, I think this is probably like the funniest familiar ability out of all of them. So, requires a skill stone, but still, a cooldown timer of just 12 hours, relocates an enemy turf after a successful attack, effective for 15 minutes, activates only once. So in other words, you activate this ability, and then when you attack an enemy's castle, if you successfully beat them, as in you get victory rather than defeat, of course, it will random their opponent away as if they just got beat when they're in the Wonder, which I think is a very funny ability. You could use this in a variety of ways. Like when annoying people port into your hive, you can just kick them out with this ability, which is funny. Or if you want to attack someone else's hive, you could kick out the guy that's in the middle of the hive and then start invading it from there. Or even funnier than that, if there's a guild that you're warring with that ports in on the Phantom Knight, and they don't have their shield up, you could just attack them and then kick them out away from the Phantom Knight, which is really, really, really funny. So for those reasons, I put Tidal Titan all the way up at number 10 with an 8.5 rating. Getting deeper into the top 10 now, we have Magus with an 8.5 rating. His first ability, Mystic Bonds, I think is pretty good because it gives you pack merging plus 5, which translates roughly into you don't have to swap out of your pack merging gear and back into it as often because it takes you longer to merge all of these packs. On top of that, it allows you to use longer pack merging speed ups on potentially packs that don't take as long to merge. On top of that, Sacrificial Offering gives you plus 6 hours to your Altar's stat boost duration. So rather than 24 hours, you get 30 hours, which is a plus 25% increase, which is pretty decent. That basically means that 4 prisoners is now like 5 prisoners. So if you get a full thing of 30 prisoners, that's like having 36 prisoners. Alright, and now Dark Assistance. This is the other familiar that gives you the completing the help bar ability. This time it's for research, which is a lot better because this is really useful for completing Watcher research events. We know how hard it is to get all the helps for Watcher research events, but this guy makes it all just an easy breeze. On top of that, it gives you the added ability of you no longer have to be in the kingdom where your guild is, because you could just get your helps from using this guy. So a very game-changing familiar here, which is why he gets to the top 10. With the first 9.0 in the countdown, good enough to get him a rank of 7th, we have Goblin. His first ability, Harvest Frenzy, plus 25% gathering speed. It's pretty good, especially during Guild Fest. If you happen to take the gather X amount of resources quest, this will help you get that done even faster. Gold Hoarder. Gold Hoarder is going to be really good for if you're a gold hyper, obviously. But then this ability right here, Gold Digger, 6 to 12 million, so it averages out to being about 9 million gold on average. So 9 million gold every day that you just get. That is, guys, that is just an incredible ability that's really useful for T4 players, because we all know how much gold T4 costs. So because Goblin just gives you that stupid amount of gold, he gets the 7th slot. With another 9.0 rating coming in at 6th, we have Goblin's brother, Shaman Gremlin here. His first ability, Busy Hands. I find that this isn't that useful because by the time you get Shaman Gremlin up to max, you've probably already completed all your constructions. But regardless, plus 5% construction speed. It could also be useful if you're doing the Watcher building event strategy. Loaded up, like I said earlier, I don't really involve myself with gathering gems. I just find it to be too much of a hassle. But this is useful for if you want to go full on balls deep in gathering gems after KVK. But Stroke of Fortune, I calculated it. So 1500 gems with a cooldown timer of 2 days. So in a month, you could activate this 15 times, and on average, you would get 1500 gems. So what that means is that you're getting over 20,000 gems a month by just pressing a button, which is crazy. That's almost like having a new treasure trove that you just don't even have to invest gems into. So it's a very good ability. The ability to get these gems now is going to be even better now that archaic tomes are a thing. So Shaman Gremlin gets that 6th slot, I think, well deservedly. Another 9.0 rating here, coming in at 6th, just shy of the top 5. We have a Pact 2 familiar here in Totem Pest. His first ability is nothing special, just plus 35% timber production. But this ability, Ship Ahoy, is so underrated. So every day you get to refresh your cargo ship immediately. That means you're getting more res, you're getting more speed ups. If you like the captain specials, the captain steals, you're getting more of that. And during Guild Fest, when you take the like complete 32 cargo ship trades quest, this is going to help you out a lot in doing that. This ability right here is one of the most underrated familiar abilities in my opinion, and I think that Totem Pest is definitely deserving of that 6th spot. Kicking off the top 5, we have Hoarder with a rating of 9.5. His first ability, Trove Expansion, gives you a max deposit of plus 10,000, which is going to be good for getting you some more gems out of your treasure trove, obviously. This ability right here, Merging Speed for Skill Stones. I honestly don't know if this is any good at all because I haven't really tried merging that many skill stones, but overall I don't think they take that much time, so this ability is not that good in my opinion. But this ability right here, at max, cooldown time of 3 days granted, but you get 3 random jewels at max at a cooldown timer of 3 days, like I said. So I'm not sure if 3 random jewels means 3 random jewels of the 10 generic jewels, or if it means 3 random jewels including monster sets. If it means also including monster sets, then that means that it could also potentially include champions jewels, which would be crazy. But let's just assume that it only includes generic jewels. I don't actually know because, like I said before, I haven't gotten to Pack 4. But still, there's 3 out of 10 jewels that you want in the game. And if you're getting 3 of them, then that means odds are that you're going to be getting a jewel that you want. And you're going to be getting that every 3 days. This ability right here is one of the best familiar abilities in the entire game, which is why I give Hoarder a solid 9.5 out of 10. Good enough for the top 5. At 4th place now, we have Mecha Trojan, a familiar that a lot of people think is the best familiar in the game. I don't really know about that, but I definitely think that he is very, very good, which is why I have him at 4th with a 9.5 rating. His first ability gives you plus 10% cav max HP, not much to say about it. Better than defense, worse than offense, of course. His second ability, though, army defense, while only in Battle Fury, however, plus 10%. That's, slightly worse than plus 10% army defense just naturally, obviously, because when you're offline and you get attacked, you're not going to get this boost. So, it's alright, it's alright. But this ability right here, it does require a skill stone, but still increases max coalition army size by 125,000 for 30 minutes. That is what I call a game changer right there. You know how ridiculous it is to have an army boost on, right? It gives you, an army boost will give you plus 50% troops in your army, which is basically an additional 125,000 troops. Well, this, on top of an army boost, means an additional 250,000 troops when you're rallying someone, which that is just so much. That is a lot of troops to be slinging around at someone. This is going to be useful in Baron Wars. This is going to be useful in Wonder Wars for when you're rallying a big target. This is a very, very, very good top shelf ability, and for that reason, Trojan Horse gets 4th place. Taking the bronze medal with a rating of 9.5 out of 10, we've got Pack 3 familiar Nosouris here. His first ability, Beast of Burden, army capacity plus 35%. Not really all that relevant. It can help you gather easier, and it can also be really, really useful though in emptying out banks. My problem is that I don't usually find that many banks unshielded these days. People tend to be really good about keeping banks shielded nowadays. This ability though, Thundering Blitz, plus 10% cav attack. That's really, really good, obviously. Plus 10% cav attack. That's just, free plus 10% there. But this ability right here, in a flash, completes gathering for 5 random gathering armies, does not include gem loads, and does not grant points. This ability is so freaking good, because what you can do is you can go to level 5 tiles, go out and gather like over 10 million RSS instantly. And the best part about it is that you guys know how overlords, they like to make a big deal about how, the level 5 tiles are our tiles. I used finger air quotes on that because they're not really their tiles. Well, you send out your 5 armies to go gather, you instantly gather them. What the hell are they going to do about it? How do they stop you? You just immediately gathered them, and if you're in a shield, they can't even attack you over it. So I think it's a really nice troll ability, and at the same time, it is also very, very good for getting a ton of res, and that's why Nosouris gets the bronze medal. Finishing at 2nd place, or first loser depending upon how you look at it, with a 9.5 out of 10, we have Mr. 6-Pack Spider himself, Helldrider. And this guy is a very, very good familiar, the best familiar in Pact 4 for me. His first ability, Hellish Spirit, plus 10% infantry max HP. Nothing really good to say here about this. Not as good as attack, but better than defense. This next ability here, Prison Break, I think is really, really bad actually, because if your leader is getting captured, what the hell are you doing? That's all I have to say. Like, why is your leader getting captured? This next ability right here, Convocation, grants 15,000 random troops from the highest tier available to you. In other words, grants 15,000 random T4 troops. And if you don't have your siege unlocked for T4, then guess what? You don't even get T4 Siege, which is so amazing. I always knew there was a reason why I never did that research, and it's going to be for this familiar, because getting 15,000 random T4 troops every 3 days is so good. That's 5,000 T4 troops a day for free from this guy. And to put that in perspective for you guys right now, as you can see here, I'm currently in talents, I got my training speed, and if I go over here to train some troops, if I wanted to just naturally train 5,000 T4 troops, it takes me over a day to do that. This is better than having just like another ongoing training going on. This is so much better. It doesn't take any, it does take time because you do have to wait 3 days, but it doesn't take any res, and it goes alongside of you just naturally training troops. He is so good. based just off of that one ability alone. So that's why I give Helldrider the silver medal and a 9.5 out of 10 rating. Alright, so those of you that are extra perceptive would have known that since I said Helldrider, that means there's only one familiar left to be the number one familiar, and for me that has to be Trickstar, Mr. Slim Thick himself. Look at that cute ass. But anyway, let's take a look at Trickstar, because Trickstar to me gets a 10 out of 10. He is the perfect familiar in my mind. So first of all, he's not a part of Pact 4, he's a part of Pact 3, so he's pretty easy to get to. And he gives you plus 5% research speed. So unless you're a part of that lucky group of people who spent thousands upon thousands of dollars to max out your research, then this plus 5% research speed is going to do a lot of work for you. In very long researches, like the max army researches, this is going to save you days. It's such a good ability. Astral Assistance, plus 10% ranged attack. That is so good. In my opinion, I think range is the best troop type in Lord's Mobile, and this is giving you plus 10% to their attack, which is so good. And then finally, the max ability here of Lucky Stars grants 3 random Holy Star items every 2 days, and I've got this ability on max 2, guys, and let me tell you, it is so good, because out of all the familiars, out of all 35 familiars, if you want to even include Frostwing, you can, 36. This is the only familiar that can help you get your gear up higher, because he can give you Holy Stars, and then you wait for the Labyrinth events, and then you can use those Holy Stars in order to get the Ultras to get your gear up. He's the only hero that can help you get your gear up. And usually I find that you get around like 3,000 Holy Stars out of this. I find that you get the 1,000 most often, but I have gotten 10,000 Holy Stars a number of times. This ability is just so good. In my opinion, Trickstar, he has no holes. Every ability does something that you really want. Research speed, ranged attack, Holy Stars. And for that reason, Trickstar, in my mind, is the best familiar in Lord's Mobile. That's going to do it for this video, guys. And if you enjoyed it, go ahead and like the video, subscribe for more videos like this. And if you have a different opinion, you think that I gave a wrong rating to a familiar, then please feel free to go ahead and throw yourself off of a bridge. I'm kidding, guys. Obviously, go down to the comment section, tell me why I'm an idiot, and tell me why I should have given, like, Mole Shaman a 10 out of 10 because you're a wall trap and he's just so good. So, anyway, guys, I've been babbling on long enough. That's going to do it now. I'll catch you guys for the next video, and as always, stay saucy.